most people are not happy about the gas surcharge that Uber announced, and those people might actually be onto something. The only way to know for certain is by breaking down the math behind the surcharge to see if the surcharge is a good thing or if it's just Uber's way to keep us quiet. I like to treat all my viewers as business owners, and we have to approach this from a business standpoint. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to discuss what the gas surcharge is, we'll discuss the surcharge and whether or not it's worth it from a mathematical standpoint, and I'm even going to throw some gas saving tips that everyone can use at the end of the video, so just make sure you stick around for it. But first, we have to understand how we got here. On March 11th, 2022, in an effort to help drivers pay for record high gas prices, Uber announced that they will be adding a temporary surcharge to rideshare fares. The gas surcharge will be either 45 cents or 55 cents for passenger trips, and then it'll be 35 cents or 45 cents for Uber Eats deliveries based off of your current market. The surcharge will be paid directly from the customer and 100% will go to the driver, so that's pretty cool. The only exception to this is if you work in New York City. Now, New York City recently had the rates increase on March 1st to $1.16 per mile, which comes in at 5.3% increase, which Uber claims it already includes the projected cost of gas prices for New York City, but I don't buy it. I don't believe them, and that's because it sounds like they're doing this out of convenience, because New York City was scheduled for the increase regardless of gas prices due to a law that requires all rideshare companies in New York City to keep up with the $27 per hour income. But not everyone is as lucky as people in New York City. That's because the gas surcharge for all the other non-New York City drivers is temporary and won't be considered for another 60 days. That potentially makes the surcharge increase a good thing wrapped in a bad time frame. As of March 12th, the national average for gas was $4.33. If we were to go back 60 days, which is the time frame Uber has given themselves to reevaluate the gas surcharge, we can see that the gas prices have gone from $3.44 to $4.33. That's just a couple of pennies from being short of a dollar difference in gas prices. While that doesn't sound bad yet, the biggest jump in gas didn't happen until the Russian and Ukraine war started at the end of February. That means that within the last 2 weeks from when I made this video, gas prices have gone from $3.70 to $4.33, with experts expecting prices to increase drastically in a shorter period of time. So while Uber's 60 days of reevaluation sounds good on paper, it's entirely too much time, which makes the whole thing feel disingenuous to me. A better solution to this would be to directly tie the war-related gas cost increase to the gas surge for specific markets, which should be reevaluated once every 2 weeks instead of once in a 60-day period. Do you agree with that? Let me know by smashing the like button if you agree, and if you don't, drop a comment down below. I'm always way more curious about people's opinions that differ from my own, so if you think that this is perfect, smash the like button, but if you think you have a better idea, drop that idea in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Despite how I feel about the 60-day reevaluation period, that doesn't mean that the initial offering of the gas surcharge isn't enough. In fact, I actually think it's a pretty good start, but I'm going to try my best to prove it mathematically, because that's the only way we should do it when it comes to businesses. In their message to driver, Uber notes that if you do 40 rides in a week, you'll get an extra $22 in gas surges. Here's some real world comments from some people in Facebook groups that I'm in that I'm going to share with you. They also think that the surcharge isn't enough. One driver says, "I just received this notice. What a joke. This doesn't even cover the extra cost we are paying for the fuel and the customer is paying for it, not Uber. While I'm losing money on these longer pickups, they think that 55 cents is going to be enough to cover it." Half of this is a really good point. By making the gas surcharge based off the number of rides rather than the number of miles, Uber makes it so that taking long rides become less desirable than taking short rides. For example, I recently took a passenger on a 4-hour and 30-minute ride, which ended up being 9 hours round trip because I gotta go back home. With Uber's gas surcharge, I would have only received 55 cents for that entire 9 hours of driving. I don't want you to see that example as me complaining, because I averaged $30 per hour in earnings for that ride, even on the way back. But I would have averaged that same amount with a shorter trip, so I missed out on the gas surge bonuses if they were to do it per mile rather than doing it per ride. Another driver thinks that this is all a play by Uber to stifle a planned strike on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. Now, I don't plan on striking, and my next video I'm gonna put out is gonna explain to you why you shouldn't either. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss that. When it comes to the fuel surcharge, a lot of people are leading with opinions with emotions instead of just looking at the math. When you're running a business, it's important to always consider the math first and then consider how you feel. How you feel is important, and I don't want to take that away from you, but how you feel about the math is even more important. Since America is so huge, we're going to have to rely on averages for our math, but I will also teach you how to calculate it for your personal situation too. Using Uber's 40 rides as an example, an Uber driver driving 13 hours on the low end or 20 hours on the high end will get $22 extra from the gas surcharge. Let's bump up those numbers to full-time numbers while we assume the worst case scenario of needing to drive 20 hours to hit that. So we're going to assume 40 hours per week, which means the driver will receive around 88 ride requests, which will pay out $44 in fuel surcharges. For me, I have to fill my tank up once every 10 hours of continuous driving. That means I would have to fill up my gas tank 4 times for that amount of work. So 4 times 50 is $200, and that's how much I would have to spend on gas for the week. Let's review. I spent $200 in gas, but only got $44 in fuel surcharges. Sounds a little unfair, right? But it's only unfair if you expect the surcharge to cover your entire gas bill, when the surcharge is only meant to cover the price increase due to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. The accurate way to determine if it's fair or not is to compare the percentage of the sudden gas increase to the percentage of gas that the fuel charge covers. And here's what that looks like. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that gasoline increased at 6.6% since February, which is when the war started. We calculated that for every $200 I spend on gas, I get $44 back in surcharges. 44 is 22% of $200, which means that on average, Uber is paying out 15.4% more than they need to in order to match the gas increase, but that still doesn't mean that it's enough. It must be understood that this is just an average across America. Places like California have a much higher cost of gas than states along the East Coast. On top of that, not everyone drives the same car. People who drive SUVs have a much higher gas bill than someone who drives a Prius. So just because the gas surcharge might be beneficial to me, doesn't mean it's also going to be enough. But on average, mathematically speaking, from a business perspective, it's enough. At least for now. And here's why I say for now. Remember when I said that 60 days is too far out for Uber to reconsider the surcharge? I'm willing to bet that the conflict overseas gets worse because it's just getting started. Gas prices will continue to rise and it will eat away at the remaining 15% of the gas surcharge that we're bonusing from. But there's 3 things that you can do to help out with the price of gas, even if Uber won't help more than they're trying to help now. Tip number 1, get a club membership from a gas station. I don't know how widespread it is across America, but I have the ability to sign up with my local gas station called Parker's that allows me to save 10 cents per gallon. If you want an explainer on how gas club memberships work, make sure you subscribe because I will be doing another video that goes into more depth on this topic since I used to be a district manager for a gas station, so I'm gonna give you guys the insider. Tip number 2, don't drive during traffic. With rideshare, majority of our pay comes from miles driven and not the time we spend driving. Being stuck in traffic not only messes with how much you can make per hour, but it also causes you to spend more on gas between all the constant stops or inefficient speeds that take a hit on your gas. Tip number 3, always fill your tank up on the way home. I find that when I don't get gas before heading home, I usually don't do the due diligence of finding the best gas prices since I'm in more of a rush in the next morning. Being prepared is the best way to make sure you're getting the best gas prices that you deserve. If you've done everything you can and you still feel like it's time to quit because of gas prices, well, watch this video. It might change your mind and might help you calculate things that you should do instead. So until then, keep earning and just try to keep what you earn.